So, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kelly. I am coming to you live from our workshop in Berlin, Massachusetts. We are a furniture painting business, and I want to show you our new project. So, this piece I shared with you a couple days ago, and people really liked it. So, I love it because it has all these incredible carvings, and immediately I thought about how great it would look with a dry brushing technique. So, that's what we're going to do here. And today we're going to work on getting the foundation laid correctly so that you can have dry brushing success, because this will really update quite well. So yesterday, I asked you all what color you think we should go with. So the options were antique white, which would be pretty and classic and gorgeous. This is seagull gray, which again would be a great choice. Basil. So this would be a lot of fun, really interesting, different color. And then we also have driftwood. So this is a really nice gray, almost has a little bit of brown in it. So this would be another great choice. So you all commented a lot and gave me some really great feedback about what color you'd like to see. And ultimately, I decided to go with one that I've been waiting to work with. So it's been popping out at me for a while. I tried it on I thought I was going to do it on a different piece, but that didn't work. So we're going to go with Basil. And I think this will be a really great way to update this piece. A lot of you responded to that, and I think it's fun for spring. It's a really nice sage. It also kind of pulls in, we have some flowers and kind of some natural elements, so I thought that might be fun to play with the basil, and then I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go. So I think that we'll be dry brushing with probably antique white, possibly bright white, and then we might even do some other color washes or glazing, although we've done that a lot lately, so I might switch that up. But there's so many possibilities with a piece like this, so I'm super excited about it. So, we'll be working with basil, and I wanted to show you a kind of a basic tip. One of the things that you want to be sure of when using your paint is that you open it correctly and you just have the proper basic techniques in order to set yourself up for success. So, I highly recommend not painting out of the jar, or the whatever it is, and then using a small container or something else to put your paint in. And there's a few reasons for that. It's kind of a basic painter's technique, that's one reason, but also you're going to be taking your brush and dipping it into your pure substance and then brushing it here, and you might pick up something. You don't know what, different contaminants, different oils, waxes, whatever is on this piece, and then if you take your brush and dip it back into your pure substance, you might contaminate it, and that could set you up for problems down the line if you don't end up using this entire piece of paint for this project, which you probably won't, especially with this little table. There's no way I'm using a quart on it, so if I was dipping back and forth, I could very easily contaminate this, put it away for a little while, and then when I open it up again, it might have a funky smell or it might behave incorrectly. So the best thing to do is to just use a simple little cup. So these are my favorite. I talk about these a lot because I think they're super helpful. And these you can just get off Amazon. They are little like takeout containers. I think it's probably 16 ounces, but it fits in your hand quite nicely. It holds just the right amount of paint. You don't need a whole painter's bucket. And they also have these great covers. So we have these all around the shop. When we are done with it for the day or for the moment or for the project, we just put the cover back on, label it nicely, and we can pick up again later. So if we want to use it again, we're not taking this potentially contaminated paint and reintroducing it to our pure paint. So that's why we do that. So to open your paint correctly, the best tool, if you have a painter's key, that's great, but a 5-in-1 or even a screwdriver works fantastic. Do you know what a 5-in-1 is? This is the best tool. You should absolutely have one of these. Any level painter. I've had this for 15 years. It was probably $5, and it does everything that you want. You can use it as a scraper. If you're painting walls, you can use the roller cleaner there. You can use it for just everything. I constantly have it in arm's reach, especially to open paint. So you just kind of go around, lift it up, and do multiple little lifts. You don't want to gouge it out because that can injure your paint ring, and then when you're trying to seal it up again, it might not work well. So, little tip there. Always give it a great stir. So if you're working with, like if you're painting your walls or whatever, from the store, sometimes they will shake it up for you, and that's always a great option. So if you can have it shaken in the paint machine from, you know, your paint store, that's great. But you still want to give it a nice stir. And you want to be pulling everything from the bottom and making sure that it gets all the way through your paint. Because depending on the paints or the colors or whatever, you could have some separation, and you want to make sure that your paint is as consistent as possible. So, stir, stir, stir. And then, again, we're not using this to paint out of. So I have my handy paintbrush. Wipe off your paint stick. And these are super easy to get. You could also use a scrap piece of wood, but be aware of whatever you're introducing to your piece, if it's covered in yuck. These we actually give out with all of our general finishes orders, so we like to include that just so you have a fresh one. And then we're just going to pour, you know, 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch, and I think that's too small, so I'm actually going to use my chip brush for that. Be sure to wipe off the channel there. And another little tip, try not to pour out of the front, because if you cover that label, you might not be able to reference it later, and if you have a couple similar color paints, you might not know what's inside, and that could create a problem if you're trying to color match or just know what you're working with. So, wipe out the channel, and then seal it right back up. You want to keep your can of paint as pure as possible. Also, put a rag over the top. If you have a whole pool of paint in there and then you tap it closed, you could squirt yourself. So, tap it around, again very light, wipe it off, and now we're done with this for the day. So, to get started on our piece, we're going to do a couple things. So the secret to having a successful dry brush is you need to get in all of these crevices. So you can see how deep they are. Some of these are about 1/4 inch depth. So we need to make sure that we cover it all and we get a really solid foundation. We also don't want to miss anything. So one of the challenges when you're working with a very detailed piece, or any piece in general, is that sometimes you're painting and then you get to the end and realize that you completely missed, you know, the bottom of one of the spots or something weird. So what I always like to do is start with it, or at some point, like flip it upside down or get a different angle on it. That way you can see what is going to happen, and you get a solid view of the entire piece. So we're actually going to start with it upside down and get a nice coat on the bottom. And I have already prepped this piece. So I took it and it's in pretty good shape. So I just cleaned it with a 50-50 mix of denatured alcohol and water, distilled water, and scrubbed it down a little bit, used my little toothbrush, and now it's ready to go. So I also created a solid stopping point by taping off the back here, and that's because I don't like to have stray brush strokes or just, you know, I don't like it to look too sloppy. So if you create a solid line, that's going to look much better than if you're just trying to cut in and, you know, you have a stray brush stroke somewhere. So today we are using Klingon round brush. And the reason for that is because round brushes are really great at getting in these tiny little details, which is going to be the challenge with this piece. So instead of using a wide flat, which will just kind of lay over the top, this is going to be really great at getting into those details, and then we can brush it off after. And also it's so small that, yeah, I thought a small brush would be nice. So we are ready to go. And just wiping this off. So I see some of you are commenting with different, you know, let me know where you're from, and I love that. Commenting on our videos is super helpful. It helps me feel like I'm not talking to myself too, so that's nice. And it just helps us get a little bit better reach in front of some different people. So, thank you. So what we're going to do is start with the bottom of all of this. So, super easy. And there's going to be a lot of kind of dabbing because we're trying to get into all the cracks and crevices. And these pieces are fun because there's so many pretty details that's what immediately drew us to it. And that's what's going to be great. So with the dry brushing, you need to make sure that you have a solid foundation of the color because these are kind of going to create your shadows. So what you could do is use like a few different variants of the same color. So another really nice dry brushing option is to use like a whole mix of grays. So like the driftwood would be fantastic on this piece. And then to follow with some seagull gray highlights. But we've been using that a lot lately. I wanted to do something different. This I think will be really, really pretty and also kind of springy. We are located in New England and it's been a very long winter. So we are very much looking forward to getting some decent weather. And it's been fun to start kind of decorating again for spring. So I thought this would be a cool piece for someone to pick up. This will be available for sale. So at this point, we're just going to see what happens with it and then we'll list it for sale and hopefully somebody likes it. So we have that. Just painting around here. And the reason for doing it upside down is because we want to make sure that we have coverage for when we flip it right side up. I don't like to find missing spots or holidays after. That's not fun, especially when you have the piece for sale. So we're just making sure that we have all of this under. And I'm not laying it off a lot, which means smoothing it out, because this is going to be a highly textured piece. So I want to create that a little bit while I'm working on it, especially on the flatter areas. So today we're working with General Finishes Milk Paint, and that has excellent leveling properties. So that means that it will automatically, as it dries, work out some of your brush strokes to try to make a smoother look, which is really great, especially when you pair it with one of these Klingon brushes. You can get a super smooth look without using a sprayer. So, love that. But in this case, that is not the look that we're going for. So, we want the texture, which is why I'm not trying to smooth it out too much. Because now, as it levels, it will still create some variation, but not as much. So, oh, I see something about contaminants. Oh, yeah, so something else you want to keep in mind is when you're using water, which many times you'll use it to cut down your paint, extend the open time, whatever, blend, you'll use it for a whole bunch of different things. If your tap water is contaminated with anything, which most tap water, as far as I know, has like, different levels of stuff, that's not ideal to introduce into your paint. So what you could do instead is use distilled water, which is purified. So now you don't have to worry about introducing whatever into your paint and potentially having an issue. So you can get distilled water anywhere at like the grocery store. It's like $1 for a gallon. So it's a really nice product to just have on hand. You don't end up using a whole lot. I think that we just bought like our 2nd gallon in like 6 months. So it's not a large expense, but it is something to consider if you are looking, or if you're struggling with issues like that, then you want to make sure that you rule out any potential issues, is basically what it comes down to. So that's why I have my little cup That's why we use this distilled water. And the best just tools that we can, always. So we could be using a larger brush for this. I felt like that was a little bit of overkill. So we're just using a small brush, making sure that we get into all the details. And you want to try to be fairly light with it because you don't want to leave paint that is going to settle into your details and clog up some of your prettiness. So the whole reason for this piece is to show off those carvings. If you were to have a very heavy hand and paint and just leave a sloppy, a mess on it, it would settle into the cracks and that would pull away from some of your gorgeous detail work. So try not to use too much. It's better to use a few light coats than to put a super heavy coat that's just going to settle in and ruin your cracks. All right, so this one. But you can't see that. Anyway, I'm just going around, painting, painting, painting. Oh, and I love when you guys leave little, comments, likes, the hearts. We can see those kind of fly across the screen, and it's fun. Again, lets us know that you're out there and we're not talking to ourselves. So thank you. Also, if you share this, that is a huge help to us or any small business, because that is one of the greatest ways for us to grow and reach new people. Because in theory, if you like something, your friends probably do too. So maybe that is someone else that we could work with or anything. Facebook is an incredible marketing tool, so we love shares, we love interacting with you all. It's been a lot of fun, especially meeting other furniture painters. I didn't realize that anybody else cared about furniture painting, so that's been really great to see that there's a whole community of people who also like to talk about paint and different colors and techniques, and it's been super fun. So thank you for joining me. We're also going to make sure that we get all of the base of the feet. And I'm going to share a picture in a little bit of a piece that I did a lot of dry brushing on, so you can see kind of the look that we're going for. It was a really nice French provincial set, highly detailed, gorgeous, and I had a lot of fun with the dry brushing. But it takes a while though, so when we actually get to that part, there's just a lot of back and forth, back and forth. Let's see. Do you guys want to see me paint this entire piece, or do you want to move on to flip it over and do the rest? Because this, you can't really see too well. So the other thing to do is to keep on hand a couple different brushes, because it's a little hard to get into some of these areas. This is actually a quite short spot for my brush to get into and to get the right angle. Oh, so you know what? I'm going to use my Klingon brush. This is going to be great. So this is an odd little brush. So we just got this as part of our Klingon order. It's super long and it's slanted. So I was kind of trying to figure out a nice application for this, and I think this is going to be perfect. So to prime a Klingon brush, you want to make sure that it is wet. You use these wet at all times, but the first time it's going to soak up quite a bit. So, thank you. Someone just said I tend to think about what you're thinking. I try. I know what my questions are, so, oh, this is perfect. So, can you see maybe not, trust me. So I can't get in here with my regular brush, but this one is getting into all those weird little spots. So originally I was thinking that this was going to be a great brush to use, see how weird it is, for secretary desks. So if you've ever painted one of those, or seen one, they have that pull down and then all those little cubbies, and it's a super challenge to try to paint in those. It takes forever. So that's originally what I thought I would use this for, but turns out this is super helpful. So these are, it's called a this is a P20. So this is a medium angled brush by, see weird, by Klingon. So we have a couple of these in our online shop. So that we just got started in the last week or two, and it's been really cool. So it's been great interacting with you all and seeing what you like and sharing our favorite products. And this is one of the things that is available. So we have a whole bunch of Klingons. They're super challenging to find. So we don't have as many as we'd like, but I know there's only one more of these left. But we'll be getting more, now, especially now that I can see how well this is going to work. So, we had a couple of the F50s, which if you're a furniture painter, you probably know about those. They are short-handled instead of the super long handle, and they are like a 2-inch brush, oval. They're really quite comfortable to use, and they're a great brush. So we got in a handful of those last week, sold them in 4 hours. So that was pretty cool, because I know a lot of people are waiting for those. So they are hard to find, but worth it when you get it. I painted something the other day with it, and it was really very easy to use. Everything I love about Klingon, but with a shorter handle. And these are interesting brushes because you use them wet, and you also store them wet. Okay, and the reason you do that is because these filaments actually work to help you level out your paint. So you're going to get a smoother finish than you would with a traditional brush, or a lot of people use chip brushes, which are okay for some things. And a chip brush is just this guy right here. But they're cheap. They're like $1.50. If you're looking for a super smooth or just a really great finish, they're not highly recommended. I would recommend using the best products that you can get a hold of, especially if you are a professional or you want to be. Your products really do help your finish significantly. So if you're using great products, you're going to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that you might run into if you're using cheaper products. And still, they're very cost effective. So like a brush, you're going to use this for quite a while. The chip brushes, you might get a couple paintings out of them, but they're not going to be great quality. They're going to rust very quickly, and you're going to go through a lot of them as opposed to just buying a $20 brush and having that last for quite a while. So I always recommend getting just the best things that you can get a hold of and try different things. You'll find that some paints you love and your friends might not, vice versa. So it's always worthwhile to experiment and then figure out, what works for your style of painting and your budget and what you're looking to accomplish. So that's my little spiel. The other thing is be wary of anything that says no prep. There's a lot of miscommunication about that, and I've been painting for a long time. I have training. I went to a 4-year school for painting, and prep work is non-negotiable. There's just you're not going to get a great finish unless you do the prep work. Sometimes you might. You might get lucky and your piece works out great and it didn't have any contaminants. But in most cases, you're going to run into problems because you didn't remove all the grime that was on there, or you didn't sand and get a nice, smooth surface to begin with because the paint said no prep. So just prep. It doesn't have to be a long process. You can do it fairly quickly, but a quick sand and a quick cleaning will save you a lot of problems down the line. Oh, so the other thing I want to do is paint in here while I have it upside down. So that I'll do real quick, and then we'll flip it over. And I probably won't paint upside down for the entire piece. I mean, for any more coats. Maybe one more. We'll see how it covers. But this is really just to make sure that I cover everything and don't have any mistakes that pop up later. Especially with such a highly detailed piece, it's very easy to overlook a section or to think that it's covered and then discover that it's not down the line. So I'm always a fan of doing a little bit more than I need to and not having the issue. Because if you've ever finished a piece and then realized that there was a spot that you never covered or some kind of issue, it just stinks. It's a waste of time and money and it's not fun. So I always err on the side of caution and make sure that I do a little overkill. So here we are almost ready to flip over. And again, this is, so if anyone's joining, we are using General Finishes Basil. This is a highly detailed piece, so in order to make sure we don't miss anything, we are painting the underside first, and then we're going to flip it. I'm using my Klingon brush. I don't think this is going to be a bleeder, so we didn't use a primer underneath, but you never know. That could come back to haunt me. But in the worst case scenario, if we see some bleeding after this, I will just address that and then move on to the next coat. So you don't have to prime. It depends on a whole bunch of things. But in this case, I don't expect it's going to be an issue, so I decided not to. The paint itself, General Finishes Milk Paint, does not require a primer. But if you are doing anything like painting over mahogany or anything, if there's big stains on it or just a mystery stain or super grimy, there's a whole bunch of reasons that you might want to use a primer even though it doesn't need it officially. So in this case, I don't think we're going to have any problems, but you never know. Some very common problems when you are painting, especially a light color over a, like if you're taking a darker piece and trying to get it white, you can have significant problems with just coverage and trying to get everything to cover and be white. So that's a case where you might want to use a primer, which is going to save you a few coats of your actual paint and block any tannins from bleeding through, which is what those pink stains that you see. So if you have a mahogany piece and then you paint it light and then realize that it looks a little pink, that's typically the tannins bleeding through, which are basically just, you know, the oils from the wood. So that is a super common problem. And the best, most effective way to handle that is actually to coat it with shellac. So, this could be a whole nother video. It will be, because we'll be covering primers. But shellac is not oil or water based, it is shellac based, and it is actually a substance made from something to do with the bugs that will block tannins and basically anything. So if you have a mystery stain that you're struggling with to cover, shellac is probably your best bet. Most people will use this bin. It's a red label, and that works very well, but it is white. So it will change your piece to a white piece, which if you're distressing might be a problem down the line. But it is highly effective. But we're going to talk about that another day. That's not what this is about. So I'm going back in with my angled brush because this is super helpful to get into this tight area here. And there's a lot of stippling, which just means, tapping, to try to get into all of the different carving details. Because there's a lot. And the great thing is, like, even though we see all these details now, once we get it painted, they're going to pop even more. So that's what I love about painting old wood pieces, is that even as detailed as they look now, once you get a coat of paint, and we're going to do some dry brushing, we might do some glazing, maybe a color wash, we're going to do a whole bunch of things to deepen the recesses and then highlight the high spots. So that's how we can get some really incredible definition. So that's the plan with this piece. I think it'll stay in the green family. We might use white for the highlights. We might use a little bit darker green gray if we decide that the shadows aren't quite doing it. So I don't know. This piece is going to be for sale. So at this point I am doing, it's fun to just be able to take a piece and do whatever I want with it, since I'm working with my vision as opposed to painting for a client. So we've been doing a lot of custom work lately, which is amazing, but occasionally that means that I'm not able to do exactly what I would choose to with a piece, because we're satisfying their needs and creating a piece to match their home. Whereas if I had total freedom with it, maybe I'd do something a little funkier, a little brighter, a little more detailed. You see that? Okay. Because I really like the faux finishing. That's my favorite part. So if I have to paint a piece solid, doesn't quite do it for me. I'd like to see some more interesting finishes. I have something really cool. I got a lot of ideas, but we're going to do something amazing in like 2 weeks. I'm just looking for the perfect piece. We have a whole stock. I know you can't see it, but we're in this is basically a 4-car garage. So we have this giant workshop, and then we used to be able to park here, but now it's just this pile of furniture. We also have furniture in the house, furniture in the basement, in the attic. It's everywhere. So we have a lot of pieces. I'm just trying to figure out which one's going to be right for this finish. So we have a bunch of dressers. We really like working with like highboy dressers. That's been pretty popular, and they're fun. And I think they're super functional because they're typically high and not as wide. So if you have a smaller space, they work really well to add a lot of storage without taking up a huge footprint. So we've been focusing on acquiring those, and that's been fun. We just went to an event and came home with 4 of them. So those will be coming along soon. And this brush is working out like surprisingly well. So I'm very glad that I just thought about that, because this is going to be a huge challenge to try to get into all of these recesses. And the point of this base coat is to get in all of the cracks and crevices and get a nice solid coverage in there. So the fact that this odd little angled brush is helping me do that is huge. Have you guys ever used like an angled brush? There's not a whole lot of them out on the market. Many times, the other thing I would do is just take like one of those cheap chip brushes and I will cut it down and then just use it as a tiny little brush. But the angle is quite nice to get into like all these little spots, especially down on this. Yeah, this is a really cool piece. We are thrilled that we found it. It was actually in the back room of a furniture, like a vintage furniture place that we've been trying to get to for quite a while. So we were in the area last weekend and stopped in, got to talking, and we came across this piece, which was just buried in the back. So it was so fun to be like, that's why we love this. We love saving pieces and giving a whole new life. So who knows how long it had been back there. Looks like it'd been waiting to get painted for quite a while. So now we're able to help with that, save this piece, give it a new home. In the end, this piece will be gorgeous and have a whole new life. So that's why we love this. All right, why don't we do this? So I already started painting this leg. I'm gonna keep going with that, and then we're gonna come across the apron, and we'll see. That might be it for the day. So if you have any questions, please, you can either leave them now, you could message us, you could, well, I will be around tonight and after the video. So if you're watching this on replay, which is awesome, thank you so much, then I will be sure to get back to you. And also, if you're watching this like, you know, in a couple weeks or whatever, we still get the comments. So we still know if you leave a comment, and we'll be sure to follow up as much as we can. So please, you know, speak up. Let me know how we can help. So one of the things that we like to do is educate and help people figure out, oh, can't see me now, figure out some best practices and such. Dan and I, my husband, we've been doing this for, gosh, I've been painting since 2001. Dan's been a professional cabinet maker. I don't know when he started, but it's been 15 years. So we have a whole lot of experience behind us, and we really like kind of sharing these little tips and tricks. And a lot of times, again, we don't know exactly what might be meaningful to you, what you're struggling with. So if you are struggling with something, please let us know so that we can try to either create a video or little tips and tricks or whatever. Dan's constantly showing me woodworking tips, so we're going to get more of those coming out. He just did this really cool trick with bringing together a molding, so that'll be coming soon. But also just, you know, whatever you want to know. We will be having classes very soon. I keep saying that, but it's really coming. The shop is a mess, so that's kind of our biggest holdup at this point. I want to make sure that the shop is in good shape for anyone to come into. So this is General Finishes Basil. So we are using this really nice sage, and then we're going to come back and do a couple different things. So as far as dry brushing goes, we're going to be dry brushing it. We might also come back and do some glazing. So dry brushing is going to hit the high points, right? So that we want to create as light as possible. So right now we have kind of a medium tone with our sage, basil. So we're going to come in and dry brush the high points, kind of like that. And that would be white. And then we'll have the whole piece is going to be green. And then we might come back and, depending how interesting the piece is at that point, we might go back in with a darker tone, maybe a glaze, maybe it's just a color wash, and do, you know, hit the shadows a bit. So that way we'll have a whole range of colors, and that's going to be really interesting because this is a super detailed piece. So one of the things I also like to do when thinking about this is to play with the colors. So now you can see how that really pops it out, and you can tell where the high points are. So that's going to give me a good idea of what it might look like in the end. And then as far as the layers and how many layers of each, I don't know. It depends on the coverage, on what it looks like. And also dry brushing is a very, it's best to move slowly with that. So you want to make, rather than coming in with a heavy hand and putting too much on, the secret to doing dry brushing is really to do light layers. So we might do a layer and then let it dry and then see what happens. So after that, we might decide that that was enough, or come back and hit it again with another layer. And especially if you do some texturing steps, it's going to make it more interesting. If you just do a super heavy hand, it's going to look not so good. So that's the secret to dry brushing. We will be videoing this whole piece. So lately what we've been doing is sharing the entire pieces when we've been doing pieces for sale. So that's been super fun because I can show you, prep, and then this is a base coat. We'll come back in for the dry brushing. Not sure exactly when. So I don't know when. We have a big week, and with 2 little ones, I'm never exactly sure what's going to happen. And we've also just been super busy with custom work, so I don't want to interfere with our commitments there. But I also want to show you this as much as possible. So as soon as I figure it out, I'll let you know. And if you have a preference, would you rather see, it would be easier to do a little painting during the day. I work in the shop every day, but I know that at night that tends to be a little bit easier to watch. So let me know if you would prefer to see a video in the middle of the day, like, I don't know, Tuesday noonish. Let me know, because we could do that. Or we could wait a little longer and do it like on a Friday night or Thursday night. I know a lot of people are sitting around watching the videos, to wind down for the day. So I try to keep that in mind. But like today, we've been doing some Sunday night videos, which has been fun. But I have a friend coming over for dinner, so that's not going to work. So that's why we're doing it now. But it seems like people are able to watch, so maybe this is a good time. Let me know. So if you have preference, let me know. This is all based on your feedback. That helps us. And for anyone who's just joining, we are using General Finishes Basil. That was the overwhelming color and also the one that I want to use. So that's nice because I was kind of going to do it, might have done it either way. But since you all responded to it, it's nice that you have the same the same ideas for this piece. So in here we are using our Klingon. This is an R12. Can you see that? So this is a small round. There is a smaller one, but this is, I think it's about 1/2 inch round. And the reason for the round brush as opposed to a wide flat is that it's better at getting into the details since it is a little bit tapered and longer. So we're just trying to make sure that we get into all of the crevices and the details. So that is the interesting part of this piece. I want to make sure that I highlight the details as much as possible, and that includes getting the color as far in and then highlighting the tops. So that's what we're doing here. And we will come back in for the dry brushing another day. I might even do another coat. We'll see what it dries like, because I want to make sure that I have some nice solid coverage. Because the other thing with dry brushing is that once you start, you can't touch up layers beneath that without altering the top. So if you're going to, like if I was to just start dry brushing here and then realize that I didn't have a deep enough color underneath, there's no like popping that in. I would need to paint over the dry brushing and then get the coverage that I need and then start again. So it's better to have a super solid foundation before you start doing the faux finishing on top of it, instead of, you know, doing some work for nothing. So that's why we're going to make sure, like, see how light that dried? Can you even see that? In the middle, I just a few minutes ago, I did a quick coat on that, and it's already not very light. So I think that I'll be using another coat. And someone said that you'd like to see top coating. We can do that. Typically, what we've been doing lately is actually spraying. And I know a lot of people don't quite like to do that, but it really is, it's the best way to get a nice solid coverage on there. And it's not as scary as you think. So what we've actually found, Dan's been doing a ton of testing because he basically does the spraying for us. Move this over. And he's been playing with a lot of different sprayers, from professional to the DIYer stuff, to homeowner level. So what we figured out is actually this great system. It's by like 3M, and I think it's called the AccuSpray. It's in our Amazon shop. So that's super handy, and it has disposable parts. So the biggest like challenge with spraying is cleanup. It takes forever. Sometimes, depending on your gun, it can really be a challenge. But this one's been quite nice. So he's going to be sharing a lot more about that soon. I'm going to get him to put together like a blog post or something. But if you can't spray for whatever reason, the next best option that we found is actually a Klingon brush. So seriously, we're like super impressed with them. And they have been great for leaving a really smooth top coat. So we've been using Journal Finishes High Performance. You can see a whole bunch of it back there. We just got a new shipment. And Klingon brushes. Use a little bit of extender to allow you to manipulate it a little longer and work quickly. And that has been the best thing that we found so far. So yes, we do sell the Klingon brushes. We still have some, a whole bunch of them right over there. And we had some of the F50s last week, S50s, but those sold through quickly. So we do still have some F50s, which are the flat 2-inch, and that is one of my favorite brushes. So those are available in our brand new online shop. So we have a online shop at CaptivaHomeDecor.com. So there we have Journal Finishes products. We have Klingon brushes. We also have our furniture. So if you want, we offer nationwide shipping on all of those things. So you can have furniture shipped to your door. You can also have Journal Finishes products and brushes. We include sticks and some brochures and all kinds of information so that you can think about, you know, what else you might want to do, because it's really fun. There's so many products, I didn't even realize it, that Journal Finishes offers. So we include those so that you can think about what you want to use down the line. And also, if you are a furniture painter, those kind of like merchandising pieces are huge to add to your binder so that you can show it off with your clients and show them, like, you know, this is the color that I'm considering, and so on and so forth. So that's why we include them. So someone else said that they have trouble with the drag on the brush. Add extender. So extender is the best thing that we found to work with. I add it to almost anything. This I was actually just considering right now. So you can use the Journal Finishes extender, which we're going to have in our shop very soon. I have some, I just haven't gotten up there. Or you could also use distilled water, or if you're working with a water-based product. Also Floetrol. So that's available in any furniture store, hardware store. And that is super helpful as well. because that's going to allow your piece to have a longer open time, so it's not drying as fast, because when you get the drag, it's because it's drying too fast. So that is another little tip. I talked a lot about that. We did a glaze video a couple days ago, and I talked a lot about the extender, if you want more info. Or ask me questions, that's fine too. So here we are just getting into all of the details, trying not to leave too much behind, because if you leave puddles of paint, it will settle into your details and detract from them. So, and this is a very detailed piece. So like this is something that we will definitely be spraying to top coat, because brushing in, we would create a mess. So we could also spray, you know, this coat as well, but sometimes your sprayer might not get in everywhere and you'd have to come back with a hand application anyway. So I want to show you this. And the other thing, so I'm doing a lot of stippling, so that's going to create another level of texture, and when we dry brush on top of that, it's going to capture it a little more. So in many cases, I'm looking for a solid finish, and I would be laying it off and doing a lot of that. But in this case, texture is our friend. And then on the top, so it would be great to stain this. I would love that. But it's a veneer. It's not in great shape. So what we're going to do is just paint over it. And again, I'm going to create a lot of texture. So I might even do some cross hatching. And there's a little bit of an art form. I don't want to just make it look messy. I want to make sure that it looks intentional and beautiful. So, what time is it? Oh, all right. So, any other questions? I will be available tonight. I see that it is roughly 5 o'clock. Is it 5 o'clock? Jeez. All right, so I didn't want to go that long. Thank you so much for joining me. I have to go make dinner, and I will finish this later. But you can see that we've already seen a dramatic change, and we have moved from a wood piece to Basil. We'll come back in and do dry brushing on the top with white, maybe some other colors. We might come in with a different faux finish, like color washing or glazing or something else to hit the recesses to really make it pop out. So I will be sharing this entire project with you on our page. So we'll see when the next video is. I'll try to give you more notice. I know that it is a challenge to kind of grab these live, but I really appreciate it. If you could share this, that would be huge. That helps any small business to grow their audience and just grow. So that's what we're looking for, and we really appreciate anything you can do to help. So thank you so much for joining me. This is Kelly with Captiva Home Decor. We are a furniture painting business in Berlin, Massachusetts. We are also a we are the General Finishes Retailer of the Month, which I wanted to say a lot earlier. So that's super cool, and it's been amazing that they've been sharing a lot of our pieces and products. So you should be able to purchase. Let me know. If not, I'll have to fix that. So let me know what you're looking for, and I will certainly help with that. But anyway, yes, we are the General Finishes Retailer of the Month for April. We're pumped, And thank you so much for joining us. We offer Journal Finishes products and Klingon brushes and furniture, nationwide shipping on our website. So have a great night. Thank you.